And so it exposed me to the ability of a software system to manage a remote workforce of 10,000 or more writers, right? And a telehealth system is very similar. How do you organize a group of 10,000 physicians to provide telemedicine services?
What does writing 10,000 articles as a high schooler have to do with leading a fast-growing healthcare company? Quite a lot, actually. Let's dive in as we learn some key takeaways from Laurence's story.
Welcome back to the show. My name's Lee. We're going to be having a really exciting conversation with Laurence about digital health entrepreneurship. So Laurence, I'm interested in getting some context, some background information about you, like what makes you tick as a health entrepreneur, an IT nerd, and so forth. So let's go back a few years. When you were in middle school or in high school, what sort of jobs did you get that supported you, encouraged you to think about your future?
It's more like a decade, but one of the first jobs that I had was rewriting articles. So my dad does a lot of copywriting. And so back in the early days of search engines, there would be these guys that would have these blogs and they would make all this money on, Google, what do you call that? Google AdSense. And so you could just rewrite content and just change the title of the article slightly, and it would rank on the first page of Google for, health benefits of omega-3s or name the topic, right? So I would just sit there in 6th and 7th and 8th grade rewriting articles, and I would get paid $2 per article. But it was very good practice to learn about sentence structure and writing and how do you say the same thing, but you use different words. So that was one of my first article writing jobs.
What obsessions do you have? Do you play video games? Do you like watch sports? You're a movie buff. What sort of obsessions do you have that link to you becoming the entrepreneur you are today?
Well, in 8th grade, I watched the World Cup and decided I wanted to play professional soccer. So that's pretty much what I spent all of high school attempting to do. And there's an interesting link between article writing and soccer. Well, basically, there's something called the U.S. Soccer Development Academy where they tried to copy the European model of youth programs where you have these academies and they play against each other. And so I was obsessed with playing on one of these teams. So I had to get a car. So I paid for my car by writing thousands and thousands and thousands of articles for Yahoo and another company called Demand Media, where they would pay you to write about these absurd topics. It could be facts about the monarch butterfly or 5 vacation spots in North Carolina. And they would pay you $15 an article. And I would just, instead of studying for school, right, to get into college, studying for the SATs, I would just write 10 or 15 articles a day at the library. And I'd be in the back of chemistry class writing articles just to pay for my car in order to get to soccer.
So you wrote thousands of articles in order to buy a car. What did you buy?
Oh, I leased a car because I convinced my grandma to lease the car for me. And at first I wanted a very cheap car, but my parents said no initially, which turned out to be a big mistake because then I learned about the expensive cars. And I got a 2009 red Audi A4 with a black pinstripe. It was a very expensive car lease for a first car. I think it was $600 a month, not counting the insurance. But I wrote
Lawrence, there's a lot of
a
connection between the work ethic in sports and the work ethic in business. Like with sports, playing soccer, I'm sure you had to get up early or train late. How did that prepare you to be like a hardcore business person?
Well, I think that when youth players have the objective of playing professionally, it's something that you're building towards over 5 or 10 years, right? So you don't get immediate gratification. And often you get to these points where you just think, oh, there's no chance I'm going to play professionally or even play at the next level. And so there's a lot of like valleys, if you will. And so it teaches you how to deal with, adversity and not getting what you want and delayed gratification. But I actually think that in my context, it did something else, which is maybe more unique, which is that I've actually quit a lot of soccer teams that I've been on because I thought that the coach was not a good leader. And so I think that in my case, it taught me that, if you are working for someone that's not a good leader, you really don't have to put up with it. I mean, you can just quit and start your own soccer team. I mean, obviously, as a youth player, you can't necessarily do that. But the whole point is that whether it's soccer or you're working for an employer that you don't like, I mean, every soccer team came from somewhere. Every company came from somewhere. Just quit and make your own rules and build an organization the way you want to build it, instead of dealing with someone that you don't think is
It's
a
the same
good
thing
leader.
with me. I just can't work for someone who doesn't have integrity, isn't excited about their work, isn't jazzed about like helping people, at least doing something that's a little bit beyond normal, trying at least to be phenomenal. So what are the sort of lessons you have, like that, playing professionally, with soccer that you can share?
I think in healthcare, a lot of physicians work for, hospitals where they just don't think that the hospital is doing a good job. And obviously, for certain medical specialties, you have to practice in a hospital. But I think there's also entrepreneurial physicians in outpatient medicine where, they've decided to start their own practice, or they decided to quit their job at a hospital and work in digital health because they think that they can build a better healthcare system. And so I think that there's a lot of physicians out there that are realizing that, yeah, of course we need doctors to do one-on-one healthcare with people, but we also need physicians to kind of leave the system and think about how to, redesign the system as well.
So Laurence, writing 10,000 articles for Demand Media and Yahoo and so forth about numerous topics, not only did you learn about the art of telling a phenomenal story, but you must have learned about systems, procedures, how to be successful in a company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, these companies would organize these workforces of tens of thousands of writers who all would work from home, and they would claim articles, and they would, write these pieces of content, and then copy editors would give them feedback, and they would accept it or reject it. And so it exposed me to the ability of a software system to manage a remote workforce of 10,000 or more writers, right? And a telehealth system is very similar. How do you organize a group of 10,000 physicians to provide telemedicine services? And instead of claiming an article, you're having them claim a case or to see a patient. And so I think that early exposure to complex software systems made me start to think about, how do we use software for healthcare?
And it's not just a queue. It's not just like there are thousands of potential articles in a queue that writers can grab and then claim, so to speak. And it's with a telehealth solution, it's not just, a whole bunch of patients are in a digital waiting room. It's, there also has to be processes that evaluate the article and evaluate the physician's work and so forth. What other sort of parallels are there that you would find between working in writing and digital health?
Yeah, so actually the writers would have two ratings on their articles. They'd get a research score for the quality of their research, as well as a grammar score for quality of their writing, essentially. And so similarly with our telehealth company, we are having the physicians rate the patient for things like patient satisfaction. So, how much did you enjoy this visit? Also, how confident did you think your physician was during this visit, and things like that. So I think these 5-star rating systems are pretty valuable for healthcare as well. I also think that the ability for a CEO to write well is critical. I know other digital health entrepreneurs that cannot write a sentence, right? I think that communication is so critical to be the CEO of a company, as well as typing speed. I think that one of the reasons why I'm so productive is that I've never met anyone that has typed faster than me. So if you're a slow typer, I would recommend that you take typing classes online, because that will make you
Laurence,
twice as productive.
You've said that writing skills is critical to the CEO of a company. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that especially when you're in a digital world, you don't necessarily get to shake someone's hand or see their face all the time, unless you're on video conferencing, of course. But the way that you are organizing a distributed workforce, especially during COVID-19, is by sending emails, text messages, Slack communication. And often when you are writing something and not speaking to someone, you can say something that, upsets them, right? Because they didn't see your facial expression. So you have to be more careful with your words, but you can also motivate people with words as well. So I think that's important. And also just being quick to respond. Like I'll respond to my investors through software we use called Basecamp almost immediately. So it's not just the quality of your writing, but the speed at which you respond to emails, right? Because I think that being responsive is important, but it's also important to know when communication is not appropriate for an email and you actually need to get on a Zoom call with someone in a video conference where you can see their facial expressions and have a really serious conversation. I used to have this bad habit in my first company where I would write really, really long emotional emails, which is typically a very bad idea. CEOs of big companies almost don't even send too many emails to people outside their immediate circle. But I would say if you're going to send something really emotional, probably it would just be better to get on the phone or a video conference. But email can be good for like short, quick communications, things like Slack. But if you're having a really serious conversation, I would say video is even better than the phone because you have a better emotional connection through video.
Hey, Laurence, this has been great. I love how your experience of learning to write in your younger years has helped you to be an effective leader in your current role. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Digital Health Entrepreneurship with Laurence Girard. If you haven't already, take a look at some of our other episodes and leave a review on your favorite podcasting platform. We will see you tomorrow on Digital Health Entrepreneurship.